In this video, I want to have a look at bearings. So there's two types of bearings. There's compass bearings and true bearings, which are also called three-figure bearings. So let's have a look at the difference between the two. So compass bearings are the basic ways of telling direction. So we've got our north, south, east, and west. If you want to get more specific or more accurate, then we can have northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. We can get more specific again. If we went halfway between, you could have like north, northeast, east, northeast, east, southeast, but it gets pretty messy and it's also still not 100% accurate. So what we use instead is true bearings or three-figure bearings. So in these, we measure the angle clockwise from the north line. So starting here where our north line is, we're going to measure clockwise around, and that angle there would be our bearing. It's always given with three figures. So say that was a 70-degree angle, we'd write that as 070 degrees. So always three numbers there. Our first example, looking at bearings, asks us to write down the three-figure bearings shown in each of these. So our first one, again, we want to measure our bearings from the north line all the way around clockwise until we get to this line here, the blue one. So we need to figure out what that red angle is. We know that all the way around would be 360 degrees, and we're told that this little bit in here is 26. To figure out our bearing, we're going to subtract that 26 from 360. So the bearing is equal to 360 degrees minus 26 degrees, which would give us 334 degrees. In part B, this one we've got the 40 degrees there. So again, we want to start at the north line and measure round until we hit that line. So we know that from the north line down to the south line, that bit there would be 180 degrees, and then we've gone that extra 40 degrees. So in this one, our bearing would be equal to 180 degrees plus 40 degrees, which would give us 220 degrees. 220 degrees. Our second example is a worded question. So it says a plane flies 700 kilometres from Sydney to Melbourne on a bearing of 230 degrees. We want to know how far west the plane has travelled. So whenever you get a worded question, you need to draw a diagram first. So we'll draw in our north line here. Now our plane is starting here at Sydney and it's flying on a bearing of 230 degrees from Sydney to Melbourne. So 180 is straight down, so 230 is going to be over this direction somewhere, and it's flying down here to Melbourne. So that there is 230 degrees. So then it asks, it also tells us that's 700 kilometres. Then it asks us how far west the plane has travelled. So we need to make a right-angled triangle in there. So we'll drop that straight down there, and we'll come across here, and we've got our right-angled triangle. Now figuring out how far west it's come is going to be that distance there. Alright, so we've got our 700, we've got the distance we're trying to find. Now we need an angle inside the triangle. So we know that this angle here is 230, so that we can use that to figure out this angle here. So from the north down to the south line would be 180. So if we go 230 minus that 180, that would give us 50 degrees. So that tells us that that angle inside the triangle is 50 degrees. So now we can use that. From that 50, our x is our opposite side and our 700 is our hypotenuse. So that means we're going to use opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So we know sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse. Fill in what we know. We've got sine of that 50 degrees that we just found is equal to our x over 700. So then to find our x, we'll have to multiply both sides by 700. So we'll have 700 times sine 50. And if you pop that in your calculator and round to the nearest whole number, you'll end up with 536 kilometres. So the plane has travelled 536 kilometres west. So that's a few examples of questions involving bearings.